Dialyn is the next character to be released in Zenless Zone Zero. She's a really fun, strong, and flexible agent that fits in a lot of different team compositions and provides a unique mechanic that gives a free ultimate for one of your other agents. In this video, we'll go over everything about her, kit explanation, disc stats, weapons, teams, and much more. But before we begin, a quick disclaimer that this video is based on my experience on the creator server, meaning that things could change on the official release. Dialyn is a burst stunner that relies on her EX special to apply debuffs and massive daze to enemies. This is even more reinforced thanks to her signature engine, which provides massive energy regeneration while off-field and increased daze potential after using your EX specials. On top of this, she also gets impact from building crit rate, which makes her damage potential quite interesting while still getting daze from your offensive stats. In terms of buffs, Dialyn can provide a max of 30% stun damage multiplier, 2 seconds of increased stun duration, and 40% damage for your team. She also has a unique mechanic that replaces one of your allies' chain attack with their ultimate. There are different ways to trigger this, and we'll go over all of them when breaking down her core skill later in the video. Now that you have a basic idea of how she works, let's go over all of her kit so you can get a better understanding of her moves and how to optimize your gameplay. Her basic attacks are simply not good. There's no reason for you to use her basic attacks. However, after using her EX special, you can use another basic attack that is actually quite good. It regenerates good energy, and this can help you maintain good uptime on your buffs and daze output. You can use this upgraded basic attack up to 2 times after your EX special. So in case you need the extra energy or don't mind spending some extra time on Dialyn, then feel free to use in between your EX specials. Speaking of EX special, Dialyn has 3 EX special, and they have a specific rotation. It goes from rock to scissors and finishes with paper. After using rock, you get access to scissors for the next 8 seconds, and after using scissors, you can use paper for the next 8 seconds. You can swap away and even use basic attacks during these 8 seconds. As long as you use another EX special in this window, it will be the next one in the rotation. Rock and scissors are mostly for daze and damage, but paper is really important as it applies a lot of buffs from her core skill. Ideally, you only want to start using her EX specials if you have enough energy for all 3 EX specials, as it shortens the time you spend on Dialyn while also making sure that you apply the buffs from her core. Since a lot of her kit is connected to her core, let's jump ahead and talk about her core skill. Dialyn starts the combat with 60 positive reviews. Yes, that's the name of her resource that you see on the top left. Also, if your initial crit rate is above 50%, Dialyn gets impact out of it. This makes her good at dealing damage, since you're looking to get to 100% crit rate to maximize the impact, and since you're getting impact out of it, you're also dealing good daze. Keep in mind that this is initial crit rate, meaning that buffs inside of the combat will not increase your impact. Dialyn generates 0.6 positive reviews every second, and whenever she hits an enemy with her EX special, she generates 7.5 positive reviews. If you have at least 90 positive reviews, you unlock a lot of unique mechanics on Dialyn. You get 1 stack of Customer Complaint, which can be used to trigger another EX special, Get Lost, which you can use by holding down your basic attack button. This EX special consumes the Customer Complaint and can be used to force a chain attack, consuming 90 positive reviews, and the next character enters the field will upgrade the chain attack to an ultimate. However, you usually don't want to force the chain attack. That's because there's another way to upgrade the chain attack to the ultimate that is much more efficient than forcing a chain attack outside of the stun window. Against a stunned enemy, triggering a chain attack with her chain attack, EX special Get Lost, or Quick Assist will also upgrade the next chain attack to an ultimate, but instead of consuming 90 positive reviews, it only consumes 60. This helps you consistently achieve double ultimates on every stun window. Keep in mind that this is replacing the chain attack with an ultimate, so you lose a decibel generation from using chain attacks. When hitting an enemy with her EX special paper, Dialyn applies a debuff on the enemy that increases their stun damage multiplier by 30% and extends the stun duration by 2 seconds. That's why it's really important to go all the way into EX special paper, otherwise you will lose massive buffs on the stun window, and will need to start the EX combo from rock once again. This can only be applied once on the enemy, and the stun extension doesn't stack with other stun extensions, such as Lighter or Xuan Mindscape 2. Moving forward, her dodge counter is pretty good as it deals good damage, daze, and good energy generation. It also allows you to follow up with her last basic attack, but you're usually not going to use it since you're not supposed to feel Dialyn that much. But in case you're fighting a really aggressive enemy, that's a good tool for you. Quick Assist is pretty bad. It deals little to no damage on days, and the animation is a little bit long. But on Astra teams, for example, you can use the Quick Assist to trigger the chain, and this upgrades the next chain attack to an ultimate, as I explained on her core skill description. Defense Assist, on the other hand, is a good tool against aggressive enemies as it consumes only one assist point. It also deals good days and even some damage to enemies, so feel free to use this one when swapping between your characters. Her chain attack has decent damage numbers, so using it to trigger the chain attack upgrade is not a bad idea. The ultimate deals a lot of days, but be careful to not stun the enemy too fast, as hitting a stun window without resources on Dialyn or your DPS unit can be quite bad, especially if it's a unit like Evelyn or Xuan, where setting up the resource is really important to deal damage on enemies. Finally, her additional ability adds a lot of damage potential to Dialyn while also increasing the team buffs. It activates when using an attack or rupture agent on your team and increases the crit damage of Dialyn EX special by 50%. On top of that, hitting an enemy with her EX special also gives a buff for all your squad members that increases your damage by 40%. Also, her EX special, Rock, Scissors, and Paper, will deal additional damage based on the previous squad member specialty. This means that to make use of this effect, Dialyn needs to be placed at the right of your attack or rupture agent. Her gameplay is quite simple, as it basically revolves around saving enough energy to use her EX special in quick succession, hitting enemies with Paper and applying the debuff on them. The only thing that requires some attention is playing around the chain upgrade, especially if you're looking to min-max your damage output. The optimal way to handle the chain sequence changes quite a lot depending on the agent and the combo that you're looking for. For example, in most cases, starting the chain with Dialyn EX special Get Lost can be optimal, as the DPS ultimate will trigger another chain attack, and you can go back to your DPS chain attack. But for Xuan, if you can play around her ult cancel, starting with the Talisman ult into Dialyn chain attack and finishing with Xuan ultimate will be much better. Evelyn, for example, wants to use one chain and the chain upgrade after this, so no support or Dialyn chain attacks, and the list goes on. I will not include these specific and optimal rotations, as this is a more general guide, but let me know in the comments if you want a more specific guide for rotations and combos. For skill upgrade priority, focus on her core skill, as it adds increased stun multiplier and it gives more impact for Dialyn based on your initial crit rate. Follow up with her EX special, as this is the main source of days and damage on Dialyn. Then assists and ultimates for some increased days when using these skills. Following up with dodges, and lastly, basic attacks, since you won't use them that much. Most of the time, you're using them for the energy gain, not the days or damage. Now for the part of the video that a lot of you skip forward. Let's talk about builds, and if you jump here, welcome back. For these sets, the best option is King of the Summit, as it synergizes perfectly with Dialyn and her EX specials, or even chain attacks that you can use to trigger her core mechanic. Since you're rather looking to stack as much crit rate as possible, the extra crit damage from King of the Summit will always be active. There is another option that I found quite useful for anomaly teams, even though you're not supposed to play Dialyn in anomaly teams. That's Freedom Blues 4-piece. I don't recommend playing Dialyn with anomaly teams, so only use this option if you really know what you're doing. But the extra build-up is quite interesting, and on top of this, it also synergizes really well with her EX special. The buff lasts for 8 seconds, and funny enough, that's the exact same window that you have to use Dialyn's next EX special. For the 2-piece set, you can use Woodpecker Electro or an energy regeneration set, Moonlight Lullaby or Swing Jazz. Shockstar Disco is also an option, but usually it's not worth it, especially if you're not hitting the 100% crit rate without Woodpecker. You already get a lot of impact from stacking crit rate to the point where Shockstar Disco is increasing your days potential by a minimal amount. If that extra days is not translating to one extra stun window, then Shockstar Disco is being useless here. Woodpecker makes Dialyn easier to build and achieve 100% crit rate. And energy regeneration means more EX special, which means more positive reveals and days on enemies. For these stats, Disc 4 is always going to be crit rate, since you want to achieve 100% initial crit rate, and all that crit rate translates to more damage and increased impact. Disc 5 can be either damage, penetration, or attack, as most of the time the options are really close and you should focus on crit rate rolls instead. For the 6, I highly recommend using energy regeneration, but you can also use attack. Impact can find some use cases, but most of the time, the extra impact here is not helping you that much. For substats, your top priority is crit rate since your goal is reaching 100% crit rate, but pay attention to not overcap that much, since anything above 100% is completely wasted. After this, crit damage and attack comes as your second priority, as this can help Dialyn deal some extra damage when using her EX specials. Finally, let's talk about vengeance. Her signature engine is an amazing choice that not only helps you build your Dialyn, it also synergizes really well with Dialyn's kit. It gives a massive energy regeneration for your Dialyn when she's off-field. This is more than a phase 5 Hellfire Gears that scales up to 1.2 energy regeneration. Also, hitting enemies with physical EX special gives 1 stack of a buff that increases your day's output and stacks up to 3 times. If you hit 3 stacks, you also give a crit damage buff for all your squad members. This is a really good signature that increases Dialyn damage potential by quite a lot, both because of the day's buff and also because of the energy regeneration. From my experience, this translates to 1 extra stun window on Deadly Assault, which can make a huge difference on your final score. But on Shio, it doesn't feel that bad, since the fights there are usually centered around 1 to 2 stun windows. The team DPS increase isn't that huge, but if you're taking longer to stun, or you're losing 1 extra stun window, then it can actually feel quite bad. For free-to-play players, I highly recommend using Hellfire Gears, as the extra energy regeneration can help you achieve more EX specials. Crit weapons will increase her damage and day's potential, but it will take longer to generate energy. Fossilized Core is really strong for Deadly Assault, but you don't get energy or crit rate out of it, which makes it even harder to build Dialyn. And now let's quickly go over her Mindscapes. Mindscape 1 increases the generation of positive reveals from her EX special, and this helps you consistently achieve the required 90 positive reveals, even on fast stuns. On top of this, the additional ability buff will also give a 15% resistance ignore buff for your squad members. This is a good Mindscape that adds around 12% DPS increase for your team. Not to mention that the extra resources means more consistent rotations. Mindscape 2 increases the stun damage multiplier even further and adds extra damage to enemies after being hit by Dialyn EX special paper. That's a really strong Mindscape since it allows Dialyn to hit a maximum of 15% stun damage multiplier, and when paired with her additional ability, 55% damage increase. Mindscape 4 is just for Dialyn's own damage potential. It's not a massive damage increase, which is in line with all other Mindscape 4 in the game. Mindscape 6 is, once again, just for Dialyn's own damage potential, but this time, it's actually a noticeable damage increase in her. The team damage, on the other hand, is not going to increase that much. For full priority, my personal recommendation is getting her signature engine before Mindscapes, especially if you like playing Deadly Assault, as 1 extra stun window can make a massive difference on your final score. If you're going for Mindscapes, both Mindscape 1 and Mindscape 2 are solid choices, as it can increase your team damage potential by around 30%. Going further is just for those looking for name cards, as you don't get a lot of value out of these extra Mindscapes. And now, let's talk about teams. Dialyn is really flexible, as the extra ultimate can add some extra damage to any attack or rupture agent. Overall, your team composition will always look like this: an attack or rupture agent, Dialyn, and a flex slot, which usually will be a support unit, but can change depending on your DPS. Anomaly teams are not recommended, since Dialyn loses a lot of damage potential, and your squad will also lose access to the 40% damage buff of her additional ability. But let's talk a little bit about these teams that I tested and how they feel. Starting with Xuan, yes, Dialyn is much better than using Jifufu. The increased stun multiplier paired with increased stun duration is really helpful for Xuan, especially at lower Mindscapes. Dialyn simplifies a lot of the rotation for those players looking to achieve 3 ultimates on a single stun window. On calculations, if you're already achieving 3 ultimates with Jifufu consistently, then Dialyn won't be a massive upgrade. But every time you mess up your rotation and fail to hit the 3rd ultimate, Jifufu will get way behind. I also test Dialyn with Seed and Orphe, and hitting 2 Seeds ultimate on the same stun window hits really hard. The animation is quite long, but Dialyn's stun extension helps you fit both ultimates and deal massive damage to enemies. Not to mention that 2 ultimates also generates enough seal charge for another punch, which means even more damage to her. Hugo is also eating really good. I'm not a good Hugo player, but I had a lot of fun testing him with Dialyn. And yes, she replaces Lycan on this team. Since you're using 2 stunners, you definitely stun enemies a bit too fast for Dialyn to regenerate resources, but with a good resource management, you can use Hugo ultimate on almost every stun window. One from his decibels, and in the other stun, one from Dialyn's chain upgrade. Using energy regeneration here is a must, otherwise you risk stunning the enemy without enough resources on Dialyn or decibels on Hugo. Damage increase is even more noticeable if you own Mindscape 2 Hugo, as the ultimate totalize doesn't remove the stun effect. Evelynn also felt really good, actually even better than Lighter, but fear not, because it's a minimal damage difference. Lighter buffs are stronger than Dialyn, so it almost compensates the 1 extra ultimate Dialyn provides, but honestly, it feels really fun, especially because Dialyn with her signature can just pop up after Evelynn finishes building resources and spends a lot of energy to stun the enemy as fast as possible. Overall, a lot of other agents feels really good with Dialyn, but I'm not going to cover all of them here as it will take a long time to go over every single team. Especially agents with interactions with their ultimates, for example, Xuan, Soldier Ambi, and even Alice at Mindscape 2. You can even do some funny interactions with Astra's ultimate and get another 2 free chain attacks, but don't do this, alright? It's not worth it. But the idea of upgrading 1 chain attack into ultimate is really fun, and her playstyle allows her to be really flexible and fit in a lot of different teams. And that should be everything for my Dialyn guide. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments down below or join my Discord server. If this video helped you, remember to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll leave you with a Xuan Dialyn Lucia gameplay that got a kill against Marionette here, so you can have an idea of how it works. Thank you so much for watching this video, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.